Those who decide told us there was no alternative. They said the demand was fixed. They said reliability needs scale, and scale won't wait. They said firm power, constant power. Said the future needs it now. They called it a renaissance. Said the decision was already made. They said delay was danger. They said review was over. This is how the nuclear Overton window began to narrow. Those who decide talked about solutions, talked about schedules, but not about keeping what remains when the generation ends. They talked about storage for now, they talked about fixes ahead. They said the process was technical, not ours. They didn't talk about the horizon, they didn't name who stays accountable. The nuclear Overton window never held a long term. Asking slowed things down, then caution cost too much. Consent became friction, so it was pushed aside. The nuclear Overton window moved again, from open debate to settled position. Rules were shortened, reviews rushed. Governance turned into something to move through. The window didn't shatter, the push continues. Here stands the nuclear Overton window, not cracked, not broken, held open on purpose. Not a future to keep reopening, not a decision to keep revisiting. This must be decided, this must be carried, this must not be passed forward without an end in sight. Remember this moment, the nuclear Overton window must close. Not paused, not deferred, entered into practice with consent. This should not remain unresolved. This is what we must remember. This is what we must remember.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Hope you're doing well on this bitter January day, the 28th. We haven't done a show on dead whales in a while. Well, 24 hours anyway. It was a nuclear Overton window. We just I put a link in the description so you can hopefully download that song and share it. Excuse me. That's the one. This is the picture. Here we go. November 16, 2023, the surfers in a nuclear wasteland. It is unclear if the animal was still alive after it was beached. No, that was alive for sure. The cause of the death will be determined after its post-mortem. It's necropsies. It's the second largest species. It's a fin whale. Local authorities, the Wildlife Trust Marine Stranding Network, the Marine Pathology Team. Imagine that. Stranding investigation programs. Imagine that. And the Devon Cornwall police all rushed to the scene to cordon off the area and urged bystanders to get away. So that this is because it's a biohazard. But yet, if it's a biohazard, why is he using a chainsaw? Why is everybody standing there with no special equipment? It was very malnourished. We have another name. We call it emaciated. Severe emaciation. The second biggest whale on the planet. And if you're still on the other side of it, I shouldn't be able to see you. Experts who examined the whale's corpse determined that it was very malnourished. Experts. Another name for moron. The least trustworthy people are the experts. How come? You can't covet, you can't admire an expert anymore. You can't trust a journalist anymore. It's a terrible thing, right? So society is absolutely broken now. It was very malnourished. Police rushed to the scene. All the experts rushed to the scene. You see this connotation over and over and over. You start worrying that this is a cover-up. This is not to protect the public or integrity. This is simply just to protect the industry, the nuclear industry. There was another fin whale washed up in Cornwall in January of the same year. Hundreds of whales found stranded on beaches around the world every year, with an unusual mortality event declared along North America. Like, it's not normal. Pre-Fukushima, whales that died were scavenged right away. They usually sank. Right, they were usually never found. And what we're seeing, and they were healthy. They just died of natural causes, right? We're not seeing that anymore. We're seeing a flood. It wasn't hundreds of whales not found stranded every year pre-Fukushima. It's a very dishonest. A journalist is somebody with a license to destroy the planet with lies and deceit and dishonesty. They're the most unlikable people imaginable. And unfortunately, there's a couple out there that are really good people, but you just can't trust anybody in the journalism academic world, or the academic world for that matter. You can't trust a scientist. That's the breakdown of society. When you can't trust a scientist, you can't trust a journalist, because they've been getting away with this for so long that every generation of journalists now understands they have to be ruthless scum in order to get the job in the first place. Unusual mortality event due to a large number of grey whales being found dead since 2019. The grey whales were dying long before 2019. They're trying to distance themselves from the broken food chain post-Fukushima by using that connotation, right? A lot of whale strandings in recent years, post-Fukushima nuclear meltdowns, radioactive fallout worldwide. Huge numbers in Tasmania and New Zealand. Excuse me. Why do you need so many police? That's got to be AI. That can't be real. Why would you have that many police stood around? What's the point of it? It's a dead whale, not a murder crime scene or something. In fact, you won't see that many police stood around at a murder crime scene. It's just the media being scum. So I deleted the scum, and now we get to see the reality. Why would you have all of these departments showing up, all these, and these are all created post-Fukushima entities on top of that. The marine pathology team, he said, I had the privilege of helping gather vital samples for further investigation. What are you talking about, investigation? To help identify this wonderful young whale, how this wonderful young whale died, how it died because it's severely emaciated. It died of starvation. It died because the food chain is broken. And then the people that are supposed to be the so-called marine pathology team are speaking like they're disconnected from the human experience completely. Cornwall Council is working with authorities to organize removal to prevent the animal from being washed back out to sea and potentially posing a shipping hazard. Really, dead whales are a shipping hazard. Huh. Ain't that an interesting statement? In fact, that's an incredible statement, isn't it? Yeah. Well, actually, a malnourished creature will sink, so it's not going to be a shipping hazard. I'm having nightmares now of this stuff. We've been covering it so much. There's no end in sight to this. I like to say this is the last show for a while, but that would be a crazy lie. This is 5 shows in a row of different dead whales emaciated. There's another fin whale washed up in San Diego Bay. It's emaciated. And they don't give you very much evidence to work with, unfortunately, right? They're very methodical in not giving you those clean shots that will say definitively to the average person that this whale is emaciated. But because we cover fin whales and all the other whales so much, we're very switched on. Here's another fin whale. And now they're dependent upon krill, right? They're the second biggest whales on the planet besides the blue whales. And they can get up to 180,000 pounds. Does that look like a 180,000 pound animal? It probably weighs the weight of 2 cars. Maybe. That's because it's just bones and skin. A 20 meter, that's a 60-footer. So it should weigh like 130,000 pounds. Does that look like 130,000 pounds? I'm just saying, the journalist is not your friend. That's the most terrifying statement imaginable. Stranded on a beach in the Chills Islands has died on Christmas Eve. It's not yet clear what condition the mammal was in prior to getting stranded. Well, it's severe emaciation, right? That's severe emaciation. And we see every journalist will do the same thing to us. So it's not an accident, right? The Irish Times, this is Ireland. And the Irish Whale and Dolphin Group chairman, Willie, These are bizarre people. The whale and dolphin group, for instance, you'll see that connotation, particularly in the United Kingdom, for each of these groups. They're ruthless scum. They're going to get skin samples because there's no blubber, no fat, no muscle left on the animals. It's completely denigrated. If it didn't swim ashore, it would have sank like a rock because there's nothing to buoyant it. Another fin whale. It's a clear emaciation. Oh, that's the same one, I guess. I'm sorry. It was a different story. My apologies. Beached whale discovered in South Iceland. Well, this is a different place. This is not United Kingdom or Ireland, rather. It's clear emaciation. 2021. That's clear emaciation you're looking at. But they're so careful not to give you, it's very rare. It's only when the animal is just like a humpback whale, because the shoulder blades are so big, right? And it would have so much meat and blubber and fat on his head that as that disintegrates, it's a very blatant emaciation. They look like an alien creature. This is clear emaciation. How much longer are we going to pretend this is not happening? So I know my poll tonight, my headline tonight is pretty controversy. Like the idea, the poll to me is just a venue for me to frame a narrative, unfortunately. Should Greenpeace force feed whales with the millions of people's donations that they get every single year? Because you only got 100 characters in them. You got to appreciate how tired I actually was when I posted the show. I actually fell asleep. As soon as I posted the show, I passed out because we had to dig out. We had a big snowstorm, right? Even the skidoo was buried right up to the glass, to the windshield, completely buried. And I couldn't get the snowblower to fire up. I finally got it to work, but it wasn't until hours later, right? So the idea of this was, I wanted to remind myself, believe it or not, that what is Greenpeace going to do in a couple of years when the whales are gone? Did they think about that? Because that's a big revenue for them, right? There's millions of people donating to Greenpeace every year because they love whales. But what are they going to do when the whales die? Are they going to keep donating to Greenpeace? Do you think? I don't think so. Some are pretty... they're just, right, donations are automatic. But what are they going to do in a couple of years when there's no whales? Who are they going to blame? Are they going to blame your tin cans, your pop bottles, your cardboard like they're doing right now? Or are they going to blame the nuclear industry? Are they going to blame the break into the food chain? Hello, everybody. Kevin Blanche said he took the San Diego fin whale pictures. Hi, Kevin. Hi, everybody. Should Greenpeace force feed whales with millions of people's donations a year before the whales are gone? Did Greenpeace think this true, that covering up for the nuclear industry would lead to their demise? I don't think they did. Whale dies after becoming stranded off the United Kingdom coast. They all look the same, don't they? When they all look the same, because there's only skeletons and skin, that's why they look the same. Because, all the whales look different, typically, the species. But now they all look the same because there's only skeleton and skin. They don't know how that died. Like every whale, they're severely emaciated. There's nothing left on the skeleton and the skin. Well, we think it was a ship strike, Dana. You see a lot of those stories tonight. It was thought to be a male fin whale, which is the world's second largest mammal after the blue whale. The British Divers Marine Life Rescue. And so I guess the framing of that name was meant to try to make them feel like they're the authorities or something like that. They don't own the whales. They don't own the ocean. They don't have the right to lie and deceive and manipulate and misrepresent us. Right? They're doing that for the industries. The nuclear industry, very important United Kingdom military-industrial complex. It's a very powerful, one of the most powerful entities, certainly in Europe. Fin whales are a very unusual visitor to the United Kingdom and are not suited to their shallow waters. And so the United Kingdom has this habit of saying no whales know what to do. When they get to shallow water, they get confused and then they beach. I love the people of the United Kingdom, I really do. But I just absolutely, I can't stand the universities. I can't stand their medias. I can't stand their government or their police or the whale stranding people. I can't stand them. If I met any of them, I spit in their face right away. I can't stand them. Because I've been at this a long time. And my brain rejects them now because I've covered so much ugly deception from these entities, right? Kevin Blanche goes, greed piece, Greed. That's hilarious. I got to stay away from the comments because I can't concentrate. I start laughing. It's terrible for you. Laughter's terrible for you. I've been sick all evening. I'm feeling better now, but I was pretty sick all the way up till about a half an hour ago. So I'm pretty happy. I wasn't sure I was going to get a show in because I couldn't stop coughing. I had a headache. I wasn't feeling good. I'm not feeling the best now either, mind you, but I had my cup of tea laid on top of my equalizer and my preamp for my microphone. Hang on there. And I have a hot plate here to lay my tea on, but I laid it. I don't think I've ever laid it on the equalizer and the preamp for the microphone, right? That's all their job is. It's a EQ 341 and a Pro MPA 2 for the preamp. It's a Shure microphone. I've done everything I can to try to make the operation as professional as possible so that it would hopefully catch the attention of humanity and they can fight back. I failed. I failed brutally. But I just don't know how to give up, unfortunately. Thank goodness. The whales won't let me give up, I don't think. I pray anyway. He said a team from the Zoological Society of London, a mammal stranding investigation program, will collect samples. There's a very big acronym for scumbag. These are scumbags to ignore the fact that the animal is clearly severely emaciated. They got to be a scumbag to do that. Staff from the British Divers Marine Life Rescue battle to save the poor animal. And so the media paints them up as if they're some kind of saint or angels. They're not. They're literally demonic demons. They have no redeeming qualities whatsoever. Same as a journalist. See, you don't actually, like if you're a journalist and you can't appreciate that that's an emaciated animal, that that's not normal, you shouldn't be in the industry. You shouldn't be allowed, but you can't. Now, this is an AI shot. That's not the same animal. Look at the symmetrics of that whale. Now, look at the symmetrics of this whale. Right? They're not the same animal. That's not the same as this one. That's a fake one. The mayor asked people to keep away while rescuers attempt to save the emaciated animal, which you couldn't save. You can't. Like, they know the animal came up on the beach because it can't keep its blowhole out of the water. It'll drown. And so that's a knee-jerk reaction for them is to beach themselves to keep their blowhole. It's a desperate moment. They're dying and they know it. They've been starving for about 2 years or less. Say in a year or 2 years. We're seeing whales, when they get to 2 years, they're so emaciated. Like the Bryde whale that I shows you on a regular basis. It's absurd. A rare whale washed up on the California beach, part of a big problem. Only 8 fin whales found dead on the north coast, they said, in the last 20 years. All of them were in the last 14 years, post-Fukushima. But you don't have, I guess, that's a clear they call these whales razorbacks, also the fin whales. But they're the second biggest whales on the planet, the second biggest whales. So when you look at these people stood up in proximity, right? So you can make a judgment that this is not, for instance, a 100,000 pound, 130, 140,000 pound animal, right? You can draw that conclusion on your own if you're fortunate enough to appreciate this, the enormity of these animals, the sizes of these animals. So say it's a young one. So say it's not a full-grown whale, for instance. Then you can say, okay, well, it should weigh around 70,000 pounds. It's only half the size of a full-grown whale. So let's say it should weigh, instead of weighing 180,000 pounds, let's say it should weigh 45,000 pounds. But that animal there would barely weigh, on a good day, 10,000 pounds. Because of the emaciation. And without the people there, it's a little harder to comprehend the size of that actual animal. When you put a few people in that equation, hopefully, you can appreciate what I'm trying to say. Based on the state of the body, the team concluded it was in good condition with adequate fat stores consistent with a healthy diet. Why would you put that in there? Why would you say that? It's a whale on the beach. Why would you make that connotation, right? Why would you frame it that way? That's not a healthy whale. There's no fat store on it. It starved to death. It had no food whatsoever. But that kind of arrogance to put something like that there, that should be met, that should be challenged. Those people should be challenged. Right? There should be hundreds of thousands of people calling that media, demanding he be fired for making such a blatant mockery. And the only reason they're framing the narrative that way is to trick you and manipulate you and deceive you. But why would you put that in a story? If you go back and look at pre-Fukushima of a whale on the beach, you would never, ever, ever, ever see that kind of connotation. The team concluded it was in good condition, with adequate fat stores and consistent with a healthy diet. So they were looking for blunt trauma, likely caused by a ship strike. And there's so many stories where they just, even though there's no evidence of it, they'll put that there. Right? Just for anybody that cares about whales or reading those stories, they want to imprint that into them. And so that they'll regurgitate that stupid narrative too, right? Adequate fat stores consistent with a healthy diet. Should Greenpeace force feed whales? And with the millions of people's donations they get every single year before the whales are gone. I got 13 likes on my video already. Holy crap. How is that even possible? I usually get nothing. I get nothing. No views. I get no views on my videos. And these shows are complicated shows. 164 views. 177 views. 146 views. 155 views. And the amount of work you put into this stuff. And so imagine the people's job to censor me. Imagine how freaking evil they are. Imagine how wicked and terrible they are. Imagine what kind of creepy neighbors they would make. What kind of weirdos they really are in the normal world. It ain't going to stop me. Approximately 15 to 20 scientists, really, from institutions including the Noyo Center for Marine Science, the California Academy of Sciences, the Marine Mammals Center, and the California State Polytechnical University Humboldt conducted a collaborative necropsies, animal autopsies. Pretty impressive, right? You got all the best of the best scientists, 15 to 20 of the best scientists. And they got an emaciated animal that they can't cut into because it's all bone. And based on the state of the body, that team of 15 to 20 scientists concluded it was in good condition when it's severely emaciated. They concluded it was adequate fat stores when it had no fat, zero fat whatsoever. And that it was consistent with a healthy diet when it clearly emaciated. So these institutions are declaring you and the species and everything as a tool for them to advance their careers. They lie and deceive and manipulate. What are they going to do in a couple of years when there's no more whales to advance their so-called careers? What are the marine mammal stranding centers going to do in a few years when all the species stop stranding because they're gone? Where are they going to go? Have they thought about any of that? Are they going to put that under application for their next job? Likely caused by a ship strike. Really? The whale... That looks like a ship strike to anybody. Does anybody think that was a ship strike? It's interesting to see a ship strike outside of the San Francisco Bay Area. Like what kind of statement is that? First off, the whales never went to San Francisco Bay Area before because that wasn't part of their migratory route. They're going in there now because they smell sewage. Likely cause, so they put 15 or 20 scientists from the biggest major institutions in the United States. Said it was healthy and most likely died from a ship strike. Or was consistent, rather. Is that what they said? Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Likely caused by a ship strike. And then even when it's even more arrogantly and said it's interesting to see a ships. It's interesting, is it? Outside of the San Francisco Bay Area. What's this? Another fin whale. It's hard to say because we haven't never seen one before. Oh, that's right. That's all we see in these last few stories because I focused in on them because they're the second biggest whales on the planet, and I was consistently finding it. I'm not even trying, but I'm just... Massive endangered whale washes up dead on an Oregon beach covered in wounds. This is a really interesting way to frame the headline. Most people won't read it. See a piece of rope hanging out of his mouth? That had nothing to do with it, by the way. They even acknowledge it, which is unusual. It was thin and emaciated. It was thin and emaciated. Okay, so if that's thin and emaciated, what is that? Same species. What is this? If that's thin and emaciated, what is that? Right? If this whale is thin and emaciated, what is this whale? Same whale, same species rather. Different place, the same... Where's this one too? We'll get to it, I guess, in a moment. It was thin and emaciated. That's NOAA, so that's United States. That's Oregon shore in February. What year was this? Probably right here somewhere. It was thin and emaciated. So I'm having a hard time reconciling that. That if that's thin and emaciated, why is that one not thin? And that's even thinner by far, right? That's thinner, way thinner than that one. But that one's thin. Is thin and is emaciated. It's thin, what they call thin, and emaciated. But that's not thin and emaciated. That was a ship strike, Dana. That's thinner than this one. And that one's certified by all the biggest shakers and movers, 15 to 20 scientists, as being healthy, with adequate fat stores, consistent with a healthy diet. Likely died from an underlying illness. Well, no, it starved to death. The entanglement appeared to be fresh and superficial. So the so-called entanglement, a piece of rope, because it went into a place it normally never goes, was superficial. They most likely poked the rope through there and wrapped it around his head to get the picture. And 46 feet, almost 50 feet, it's emaciated. It's covered in wounds because it has no body mass. It has no fat reserves. It has no muscle mass. It has no blubber. So its immune system is completely compromised. Its skin is emaciated, for goodness sakes. In necropsies, animal autopsy, on the subadult male whale found it was thin and emaciated. An examination found the creature was thin and emaciated. It makes me sick, eh? A fin whale at Jeremy Point. So that's emaciated. Right? It has the hallmark peanut head, for instance. The deformed body. The body is not symmetrical. The whale was last seen in 2019, was known to swim with another fin whale that was found dead in Provincetown in 2018. No signs of a trauma like a ship strike. Well, why would you look for a ship strike? Why is that always front and center? It's almost 60 foot. They're not endangered, they're going extinct. There's nothing we can do. It's too bad journalists and stranding networks don't go extinct. Well, they will in about a few years because there'll be no whales for them to profit off, to manipulate us and destroy the future of humanity, destroy the ecosystem, to hide the fact of the destruction of the ecosystem for another couple of years. You got to be a real vicious scum to take that job. They couldn't determine the death of the severely emaciated whale. Really. Biologists confirmed the cause of the whale's death. It is extremely sad when you turn on the beach and see an amazing animal in front of you that died as a result of human activity. But you can see that animal, look at it, that's severe emaciation. The story is locked, right? I couldn't get into it. I think this is the same whale. Yeah, that's the same whale. I found it at the Marine Conservation Program. The results of a necropsy on a female soy whale found on a beach east of Bridgeport used to show the whale likely died of starvation. They said from as a result of long-term entanglement. As a result of long-term entanglement. Based on the level of emaciation, there's nothing to suggest it occurred in this was found in Tasmania. But like long-term entanglement, you would see severe damage from the entanglement, right? And then they would show you that. All the whales we're seeing looks like this, like of that particular species, and the humpback whales, for instance. So it's a big animal. But look at the proximity where people stood there. Now you can judge. This is small. It's because it's severely emaciated, right? Why do mammals and sea turtle strandings occur on the coast of? I don't think I looked that up for some reason. Severe emaciation. You know, I think that whale deer is this one here. That weight on the body, though, is consistent with the weight on the body back there. But look how emaciated that previous whale was. Well, every one of them. That kind of looks like this one to me. They all look the same, don't they? This is 2020. That's severe. You look at the spinal column sticking way up in the ear because there's no body mass. There's no blubber. Why is everybody climbing on the whale? These are supposed to be doing necropsies or something, right? This is in Tasmania. Well, they didn't need a great big tractor like that because that animal is so emaciated. They can just use one of the trucks to drag that around. I think that picture is AI, but I can't prove it. That's and that does not look like that. And that doesn't look right. Right? Because that whale there don't look the same as this whale here. This whale got a big curve in the body. This one doesn't. It's got the emblematic peanut head. You got the spinal column. You can see it very high, which is emblematic, and you can see the ridge line. That shouldn't exist, right? Oh, I did get a map. This is another one. That looks remarkably the same, don't it? That's what all emaciated whales look the same. This is over Portugal. Fin whale dies after being trapped in an estuary, but you can see that peanut head. They don't always give you... I think it's on purpose too, right? That we don't get like clean shots. His post-mortem examination, necropsy, showed damage consistent with a live stranding. Damage. How are you going to damage on a beach? There's not rocks around. There's not sharp rocks around, something like that. Why would you say damage? Oh, a nutritionally compromised individual. I've never heard that before. A nutritionally compromised individual. Excuse me. Hello, everybody. All 13 people. This is Napier. They say it was so emaciated that the natives wouldn't even try to eat it. You see the rib cage back there, right? 3 whales wash up in Britannia's coast in 3 weeks, the Brussels Times. There's another one. Well, you can tell, look, how tall he is, right, in comparison to the whale. That whale is going to be severe emaciations. It's 36 feet, 37 feet. Show no signs of injuries, just skinny. You know, emaciated. It's just skinny. No signs of ship streaks. I really disrespect him for always putting that there. My tea cooled off. I need tea just to cut the dust out of my throat here. So I cleared snow for 4 hours straight. And then I finally went on the skidoo and I got stuck. And because I had no energy left, right? So I was lucky there was a tree handy. I put the winch on the tree, the hook around the tree. It was only like 20 feet away from me. And I came back no more than, say, 3 feet, and then I was unstuck, like straight back home. Straight back home. That was the best thing I ever done, was put a winch on the back of the skidoo. That's twice now that saved me. The last time it took me 30 minutes of winching to get me out, but I had the wrong ropes with me, right, for the backup. Now I got the right ropes this time. Its skin is very fragile, right? And so when you talk about the other whale had wounds, but it was on a sand beach, it's because its skin, when they're so emaciated, their skin are fragile. Excuse me. He had no explanation for the beaching of 2 other whales in recent weeks, which he said were very skinny also. So 3 of the whales that showed up on their beaches in a few weeks were all very skinny. And this is in Belgium? Can't remember. Let me go backwards for a second. In Brussels, yeah. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable what we're seeing. It's a flood of emaciated whales. Just let me try to explain some of this, actually. The last number of shows, I haven't really tried to deep dive for anybody. I think I'm just overwhelmed with I'm just heartbroken with all the severe emaciation that I'm seeing. It's just, I can't reconcile. I just can't reconcile. So I'm at 800. If I forget where I'm to, remind me I'm at 800. Let me just talk about Fukushima for a second. So it's very difficult, I can only assume, for people to appreciate how a few buildings can cascade into an extinction event. That's got to be hard for the average person to digest, so to speak, right? There was 4 reactors lost there's 4 reactors lost at the one time. At the top of each of the building were approximately, if not more, but around 8 reactor cores. And in 2012, this is what reactor 3, which was a plutonium mixed oxide reactor, is much more dangerous to radioactive fallout, but it was 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison by the atom. And the anthropogenic man-made atom, if it's in the animal, whale, elephant, human, whatever, it's pulsing energy. It's an explosion every second in every direction. And that wrecks chromosomes and DNA and cells and causes permanent lesions to your organs. So when you look at these buildings, they're gone, right? But the media came out in 2013. This is just some of them. And just, I got the name of the journalist, ABC, Cecilia Vega, the biggest media in Australia. That's Anna Corinne, the CNN, the biggest media. One of the biggest media is worldwide, CNN. BBC, Rupert Winfield Hayes, that's the biggest media in Europe. And CBS, Seth Dorn is the biggest media. CBS is the biggest media in North America. So for Seth Dorn and Anna Corinne and Cecilia Vega, who's now a press club reporter at the White House, and Rupert Winfield Hayes, for them to pretend that they're 150 feet above a nuclear meltdown, the only way they can do that is if all the media didn't call them out for faking it. If all the universities went along with it. That was the only way that story can work. And they're not the only ones that done it, the medias. So for CBS and BBC, for instance, ABC and CNN, all their peers, all their journalist peers at those institutions, those so-called medias, had to participate in the lie. They have to understand it's a lie. And not criticize them, not cause any dissenting voices. Because any dissenting voices I could easily weaponize against them, right? There was no dissenting voices publicly. And then, so this is, let me do this one first. That's Neptune, that's plutonium-239. This is based on 20 days of radioactive fallout. That's 21 days. This is Neptunium-239. This is based on 20 days. This is based on TEPCO's total release evaluation that doesn't include these buildings. That doesn't include the fuel pools that were at the top of each of the reactors that no longer exist. Even though the media claimed they're at the top of the building, got the fuel out of the pool. And the significance of it is there's around 8 reactor cores at the top of each of the buildings. And the buildings produce, each of the reactor buildings, and they store the reactor cores, the used reactor cores, which are 97% efficient. They're splitting atoms for millions of years. So despite the fact that they're at the top of the building, they're still hemorrhaging radiation, and that's piped up these tall, skinny exhausts. Well, what I describe, because you see the conventional big water cooling towers, they're massive cement structures. These towers are venting the fuel pools which are at the top of each of the buildings. That's reactor 4, reactor 3, reactor 2, and reactor 1. So it was 36 reactor cores. Each reactor core was equal to, each reactor core is equal to about 100 Chernobyls. Chernobyl was a graphite reactor. Chernobyl was a new reactor. Chernobyl was a small reactor. Chernobyl didn't, because it was a 2-year-old reactor, it didn't have decades of reactor cores stored at the top of the building, for instance. These were 30-plus-year-old buildings when it happened, and they had, each decade, each of the buildings produced about 5.5 reactor cores, and they're kept at the top of the buildings for a decade or two or longer. And because there's no repository worldwide, let alone Japan, now the core has to be underwater the entire time. It doesn't need oxygen to burn and produce the energy, and we know that's it's doing it in water, right? It's underwater, so it doesn't need oxygen, which is a really interesting facet, and is a horrifying facet actually. But so you're talking about 36 times 100 reactor cores, because each of these were massive reactor cores compared to Chernobyl, for instance. They're pure uranium, pure plutonium. And once you take it out of the reactor core, it's a breeder reactor core. And the reason they take it out after, just like, they take out about 1/3 of the reactor core every 12, 14 months, is because the zirconium cladding of the fuel rods become very fragile. And if they leave it in the reactor core, it can denigrate and cause a meltdown, so they have to take it out. Each of the fuel rods got billions of microscopic cracks. And then the isotopes are much smaller again. And you can put 200 million isotopes on the head of a needle, you can't see it. But if you get one of them in a bird or an animal or a mammal or a human, your body attacks it for the rest of your life with white blood cells because it's exploding in your body every second. And that's wrecking chromosomes and DNA in cells. And because the radioactive fallout was so prolific, it covers the whole planet. So Neptunium-239 decays to plutonium-239, and plutonium killed, say, all the animals in all the experiments. But it wasn't just neptunium, and neptunium decays after 2.5 days to plutonium-239, which takes 24,000 years to decay. Once. There's 10 decays for each of these types of isotopes. So 250,000 years for the plutonium. Now this model is pretty dishonest because the neptunium, when you look at the neptunium model based on the same documentation, it's symmetrically covering the planet, right? But yet the plutonium based on the same 20 days is not. Now, the neptunium decays to plutonium. The neptunium doesn't just disappear, it decays to plutonium. So because these models are at 20 days, then the plutonium should look like the neptunium model. In that same plume, so this plume is going to have many different isotopes of enormous quantities and the quantities we're talking about is not something we've ever seen before. So 1 million atoms. So a BQ is a Becquerel, that's a pulse of energy. In order to have the pulse of energy, you need the isotope, right? And to make it easier for layman terms, so to speak, I typically describe it as an anthropogenic man-made atom, because most people can picture that. Where the nuclear industry is such a secret industry, most people can't wrap their minds around these details, these nuances, these minutiae. Fukushima plume model showed 1 million atoms per square meter. So square meter, right, is disposition. That's the rate, and disposition is radioactive fallout on the ground. So 1 million atoms on the ground per square meter covering Canada, United States. Every square meter had 1 million atoms at least of the xenon-133. And if you get to 133, you're going to have multiple 135s for ratio. Amongst other daughters of that particular isotope. Rain with 20 million particles of radioactive iodine-131 per liter fell on the United States. Now, this was a Canadian study. So that plume would have not just neptunium, not just plutonium, not just xenon-133, 135, not just iodine-131. And these are absurd numbers. Now, iodine-131, they like using that because it has a short half-life, and they're able to manipulate people into not being able to comprehend it. And that's not an accident, right? You're not taught this stuff in school. So iodine-131 is incredibly effective ionizing radiating thyroid glands of all species, including humans. And if you do that, then the thyroid gland, which is regulatory function of your body, is producing hormones. You're producing epigenetic man-made hormones. So that's going to screw up, because that dictates the functions of everybody's and every species' bodies, is the thyroid, is the hormones, right? So for every iodine-131 also, there's 10 times more iodine-132 being produced, 30 times more iodine-133, and 31 times more iodine-129, which is 220 million atoms. This was an Ottawa, Canada study. The iodine-131 is unbelievably effective ionizing radiating your thyroid gland. The iodine-132 with a 10 ratio to 1 of iodine-131, and the iodine-132, which is a 30 to 1 ratio of iodine-131. For every iodine-131, there's 30 more iodine-132 in that same plume. So the iodine-132 and 133, rather, are 9 times more effective than the incredibly effective iodine-131 at ionizing and radiating thyroid glands of every species, particularly humans too, which will trigger catastrophic congenital malformations in the species. It'll sterilize the species. Iodine-131 very powerful, so is 132, 133. And they got short half-lives, but their effects are a lifetime. So the iodine-129 at 220 million atoms per liter, these are catastrophic numbers we're talking about. It's not something we've ever conceived or had a conversation about before. And the repercussions from this are extinction event. Tokyo, for instance, ground zero, which is not ground zero in reality, it's 240 kilometers away from ground zero, but it had 500 trillion atoms a kilogram of significant consequences for the human health. There was 865,000 extra cancers in Japan in the first year. There was a massive increase of males being born with 1 testicles. There was 6 in 10 children were showing up with diabetes. They expected all of this. There was 14,200 children out of every 100,000 children needed open heart surgery to correct congenital heart diseases. There's a whole absurd list of evidence of harm. There's one street in Fukushima City where 7 people dropped dead in the first year. That city should have been evacuated. It's incredibly radioactive. Every house there was entitled to be decontaminated, but you can't decontaminate a house. It's absurd. It's an absurd thing to suggest you can decontaminate a house. But you're supposed, if you find a particle pre-Fukushima, for instance, you were supposed to not touch it. You were supposed to put up markers in international languages, and you're supposed to build a 12-foot steel fence 900 feet away around that whole area. That's how toxic that was considered. So this highly radioactive glass wouldn't have stopped at Tokyo, right? if the iodine 120, 131, 129, 131, 132, 133, the xenon 133, 135, the plutonium, the neptunium, if they can all make it here, then you can be sure, in those quantities, you can be sure this did too. It not only made it here, it made it, that's worldwide we're talking about. This model of the oceans simulation based on 954 days 2013 showed the entire Pacific Ocean, the biggest ocean on the planet, significantly radioactive. This was a study out of Germany. Radiation levels on the west coast spiked to 1 million times normal. This was the French government experts on nuclear radiation under the Ministry of Defense and Environmental Industry Research, the IRS, and the French government. Radiation levels in the United States spiked. So this wasn't a prediction. This wasn't a conjecture. This was a fact. It spiked. And so the model that they produced, the first model that we seen, was based on 8 days. That screen capture was based on 8 days of radioactive fallout of cesium-137. Cesium-137 is incredible. It pulses energy 600 feet every second. Now, the biggest byproduct of the radioactive fuel rod is the curium isotopes, not iodines, not xenons, not plutonium, not neptunium, not the radioactive glass, but it's curium isotopes, hence the name of Meltdown is curium. But the fuel rods themselves, just the fuel rods before Meltdown, their biggest byproduct is the curium isotopes. Curium isotopes need lead shielding 20 times thicker than the plutonium isotopes does. And as you know, plutonium covered the whole planet. The cesium-137 at 1 million to 10 million times what it was pre-Fukushima levels, nuclear wars, you call it nuclear testing for some reason. It's the same radioactive fallout as a nuclear war, so it's a nuclear war. This was cubic meter of air. Right, this was a cubic meter of air. Hang on. So this was the French government. Now think of this as a snowstorm. This is the model of that spike. And so right now you just approached 10 days. I'm sorry, you're approaching 20 days right there. That's 20 days of radioactive fallout. The fallout never stopped coming out of Japan even today, by the way. But you're talking about an entire planet blanketed in cesium-137. It's not just cesium-137. It's not just xenons, right? It's not just what's so-called radioactive glass. It's not just the iodine 129 or the 131 or 132, 133. It's not just the 135 xenons. It's not just the plutonium. It's not just the neptuniums. All of these plumes are loaded with all these isotopes. These plume models each there was so much that they each were able to create. Now, there's no other pollution, so to speak. Now, the difference between a pollution and this is radiation is a poison. Everything else is a pollution. So, car emissions, factory pollutions, the Trans-Pacific Corridor is well known, but it doesn't make plumes that concentrate worldwide, and it certainly doesn't make plumes that are like an invisible snowstorm covering the entire planet for millions of years, pulsing energy almost at the speed of light every second. So what this does is it breaks the food chain. It breaks the food chain. And so I had launched research expeditions from Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska. There's 27,000 islands. Now, I came at this from every direction you can imagine. I never stopped, even today, all these years later. I've done this for almost 6 years. And the species are gone. Now, that's what I'm about to show you now, was the radioactive fallout. effects were felt immediately worldwide. I actually washed up on the rocks that night in a hurricane. I couldn't get a single. There's 27,000 islands, but these fjords, these inlets, the wind, the open ocean's on the other side, so it's hard to comprehend. It's hard to comprehend what I'm about to show you. But these research expeditions, the species to your left are exterminated. They never come back. So we went back and we noticed we had all the documentation that the cover-up was happening and et cetera, et cetera. But we had a lot of documentation of damage. There was descending voices originally. The species to your left never recovered. They never came back. That's why we spent the extra years. And I was out there for 4 to 5 months, rather, a year, by myself, getting the daylights kicked out of me, under siege the entire time, and that's never stopped. I've been under siege forever and ever, and they definitely destroyed me at this stage, but I'm too stubborn, or too, I'm not stubborn, I'll never give up. I got to admit, lately I've been having a lot of nightmares about, because I cover this so much. It's caught up to me. The truth is too much to bear for me sometimes. So the species to your left now are exterminated. We went back multiple years, and the species never come back. They're not. It means the ocean is broken. So when you look at all these species, they milk into the ocean. So they're not like humans where they get together and procreate. These species, they milk into the ocean. So the ocean, for many, many months of the year, like a glass of water would have 1 billion creatures. It doesn't have that. Now it's crystal clear because they're gone. The food chain is broken. And the reason you're seeing all the birds showing up emaciated is because there's nothing left in the tidal zones. They would supplement diet under migratory route in this incredible diversity of species that would be in the tidal zones is exterminated. That's why the media is worldwide pretended that the buildings were intact, because they didn't want the nuclear industry so powerful. They have now turned all the media, all the universities against you. They had captured them a long time ago, but now they have weaponized them against us. And so all those dead whales I'm showing you in this show, the last 5 shows, counting this one, for instance, and you can go to my playlist, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of recent die-offs where we really go deep down that rabbit hole. And just lately, though, this is like 5 shows in a row of dead whales. And when I say dead, I mean severely emaciated. So normally there was a lot of, at the high tide line, there was around 30,000 insects over there. Now there's nothing. And I took my time and meandered on these naked beaches. And that broke me. Not seeing anything. And I used to be a commercial diver on that same coastlines. And not to see any species in the tidal zones is something I can't reconcile. I can't pretend it didn't happen. I can't ignore. And all I'm trying to do is the right thing. And, on the research expeditions, when you look at the species I did find, they're full of tumors. And then starfish never ever got tumors. They're completely disfigured. This was up by Alaska. Now, it certainly doesn't look like that outside around the corner. You're in shelter right there, right? But the beaches are naked. The only colors are Zoe, bless her heart. My goodness. it's bizarre that I'll never stop missing that dog. She was so special, eh? 15 years, never left my side. She was the most gentlest dog, most amazing dog I think you'll ever come across. She loved everybody, everything. People were never afraid to pet her because she just gave that vibe, right? Come say hi to me kind of vibe. And people did. People gravitated towards that. And then she stroked out. She had a stroke when we were out looking for birds and died in my arms. Thank goodness. But it destroyed me, and trust me, that experience was just almost too much for me. See, they don't look like starfish no more even. They're completely disfigured for congenital diseases. In the high tide line, there would be 30,000 insects. So if you go there at low tide, rather, the insects would just devour you. Nothing. There was no sounds in the forest at night. There was no birds in the anchorages at nighttime. And I left no corners untouched. I refused to come home for months and months and months. We documented GPS coordinations of everywhere I researched, every species. We took thousands of plastic bags to Fukushima because we were going to get samples and try to get them tested for radiation. There was no samples. There was only 3 algae out of 700 left. There was no shellfishes at all. Every beach should look like that. And this is what he censor me, is because we spent all those years doing research expeditions, and our evidence is unassailable documentation. It's unassailable. I provided GPS so that it can be replicated. I also take it to a different level where I provide you all the evidence. Think about this statement here where the food was banned in 14 prefectures, which is half the country. These are big prefectures, by 55 countries. Because it's not harmless and innocuous and benign. It's not like a banana. It's not like a potato chip. It's not like walking in sunshine. It's not like climbing a mountain. When they say that to you, they're doing it with a sneer because it's the most dishonest thing you can say. Has anybody interviewed me lately, Darlene? No. Thank you. No. Hi, Dana. Yeah, thank you, Dana. If I smoke pot before bed, I'm going to wake up and eat everything in the refrigerator. And today is my 2nd-month anniversary of getting up every morning, exercising, getting in the sauna for an hour and a half, and red light therapy. This morning I cut it short, right? But because we had a stupid amount of snow. Hello, everybody. Radiation expert is terrifying how the Pacific ecosystem, this is 2014, folks, it's terrifying how the Pacific ecosystem has collapsed since Fukushima. Plutonium and uranium suspected of spreading through the food chain. New York Times, an eerie fog of silence around Fukushima plant. The first surprising thing is there's no sound in the no-go zone. TV, 2016, a surge in babies being born with extra arms and legs after Fukushima. I feel the officials know the cause is radiation. Nurses say many are getting abortions to avoid inconvenient babies, high numbers of stillbirths. Many people reporting cancer even far away from Fukushima. There was 865,000 extra cancers. Let me bring that up because I said it twice. And never hurts to show the evidence. Well, it doesn't hurt you, but it certainly hurts me because it's a retarded amount of work, ridiculous amount of work. My apologies. Japan says National Cancer Centers, this is 2012, they stopped releasing that data after this went viral. A number of patients rose 865,000. So not everybody got health care. Not everybody was diagnosed, for instance. It's not just cancers from radiation. You compromise your immune system on top of that. But heart problems, liver, like catastrophic death even, catastrophic deaths from heart attacks. So heart problems, liver problems, lung problems, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline problems, Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, diabetes, Down syndrome, schizophrenia, mental health problem are a real issue because you're producing more white blood cells than red blood cells, which means you have less oxygen, so you act like you're inebriated, but you're actually just poisoned. South California fishermen skunked, haven't seen a squid. Usually 10,000 pounds a day, complete crashes at oyster hatcheries. Sardines, mackerels are missing. Pelican sites are deserted their breeding colonies. Ultra-rare whales appear after decades. 2014, they're all gone. Shock is the sardines, which are keystone species, right? They feed all kinds of species. Shock is the sardines vanish off California. Fishermen didn't find a single one all summer. Scientists, this is about the entire Pacific. Canada, Mexico, United States. NOAA said, we don't know why their young aren't surviving. Well, sure they do. They're not naive. LA Times, experts suggest bald eagle deaths are related to the Fukushima radiation. Idaho officials reporting similar sickness. They're having seizures and then dying because that's radioactive fallout. It's crazy, isn't it? It's hard to comprehend how four buildings are an apocalyptic event for humanity. Government investigator, acute hemorrhaging found in dead owls. It's not just whales, is what I'm trying to show you. Mortality events began 8 months after Fukushima in very poor condition, badly emaciated. And a lot of the emaciation is caused because they have radiation poisoning, radiation sickness. They have so much radiation in their body they can't uptake nutrition anymore, like a leukemia victim. That's who they are. They're leukemia victims. They have blood. Their blood is destroyed from so much radiation accumulated in their bodies. A drastic plunge in baby California pelicans. Zero born in multiple study areas. Zero born. Used to be thousands, now there's 10 or less. And denial is their best friend, right? Gray whale die-off fear the starving whales migrate north, April 18, 2025. Thousands of gray whales migrating north from Baja, California are in such poor shape. There was no calves that survived the migratory southerly run last year. So when they were headed north, they had very few calves born. Researchers believe in changing feeding conditions. What do you mean changing feeding conditions? Well, their food is gone. The ocean is sterile, right? There's still species out there. There's still food out there. But they have bioaccumulated so much radiation, they have radiation sickness, and you can't get rid of it. You can't get rid of radiation sickness. The whales were already in poor shape last fall when they began their 12,000-mile migration to breeding to Baja, California. So they were already emaciated when they were headed to California last year for 12,000 miles. So when they left California last year and headed north, where they're headed right now, they're still severely emaciated. So they've been emaciated officially, say, 18 months. And the whales we're seeing are extremely emaciated. Even from the shoreline, The bulging ribs with shoulder blades and the vertebrae visible even from the shore. And the pictures I'm showing you the last 5 days, all of these stories are not stories we've covered, by the way. We've been at this forever and ever and ever, so to speak, post-Fukushima. Professor, just 1% of the usual numbers of baby California pelicans. Nearly complete failure to breed, only 20 newborns where they expected 10,000. They've never seen anything like it. Mind-blowing die-off in the Pacific, far worse than anything's ever seen before. There's an alarm over what's happening in the ocean. The deaths are puzzling the government scientists. I've never heard of such a thing anywhere in the world. Beaches full of bodies and countless carcasses. Well, you'll stop hearing about it in a few years, 3 or 4 years, when the sea species will all be gone. Right, the cascade effect now is just undeniable. I hope, I'm not looking for it, but I hope I'm still alive when that happens. Because I want the world to know that good people like me and you, we done everything we could in our power. We were defeated when we were by a public relation firm that is the enemy of humanity for 1 billion years now. They're like radiation, where they're the enemy of every species on the planet. That's what a journalist is. That's what a public relation journalists are, scientists. Explosions at Fukushima 1, 3, and 4 may have caused the inventories to be lost from the spent fuel pool. So that's proof there was descending voices. It wasn't very much. They disappeared. We never heard from them after. So when you see these medias, this is just a fraction of medias that claim they're on top of 150 feet above the stumps of nuclear meltdowns. And they all make close to $1 million a year because they're willing to cut everybody's throat and every species' throat to keep the nuclear industry. It's just unconscionable, right? There's no, I don't know how to put this. There's no right answer to my poll in many ways. It's a mockery poll is what it really is. But yes, they should be out there trying to force feed. I love the fact that 75% of the people said yes. And I love the fact that 25% said no. Because like the idea of the poll was the irony that Greenpeace is supposed to be saving the whales, but where are they? How come they're not concerned? How come they're not parroting the stuff that we're showing? When they're the biggest, they're a public relation firm that is absolutely the controlled opposition. And they get millions of people are donating. You know, for years and years, we would, whenever we're doing stories of die-offs, there would be a Greenpeace a donate button on NBC and ABC and CBS and CBC and BBC and everything. All the big medias would run stories of die-off, right? And then they would have donate buttons to Greenpeace and they would, like, people would gravitate to Greenpeace looking for someone to do something. So here was Greenpeace. And Greenpeace blocked me on every one of their Twitter accounts back when Twitter, they blocked my Twitter account. I haven't used X ever, and I don't have my Twitter account. I can't even get into it. I'm blocked from my Twitter account. But every Greenpeace I had sent them the pictures, like I had asked them to tweet out this picture, and I took screen captures and all the other stuff. When I went back, I took screen captures before me. People commented before me. And I would wait until somebody commented also above me, and then would screen capture that. And I go back and find them, and mine was gone. I reached out to them all. I reached out to every Greenpeace in Canada, United States, and New Zealand, and United Kingdom, and Australia. I've never, ever, ever, ever got a reply. into the danger zone.
1,500 highly radioactive fuel rods inside this pool. They've got to move them outside of this reactor into 1,500.
Now she's claiming she's 150 feet above this building at the roof of the reactor number 4. She makes $1 million a year. She interviews rock stars and celebrities. She lives an absolute fantasy dream. She has tons of money. She married a police officer in the United States. And she's from Australia. She's beautiful looking, but she's such one of the most evilest people you'll ever come across. To take that job, it means you got to be absurdly evil. You have to be evil on a level that nobody else has ever seen before. Excuse me. Spent fuel pool number 2 is steaming, also a white haze above number 3, steaming. These are nuclear meltdowns. This is not steam, this is lethal doses. If you, what do you call them? Say you got an ultralight plane, you fly through that plume, you died right away. If you're in proximity of these buildings, your organs melt. Saying that reactor 3 is steaming, saying that steam is absurd. The fuel pool in the buildings the fuel pools were ejected right out of the building. Like, officially, this never happened. I'm an outlier because I show you this documentation. I'm the bad guy. Japan government papers after 3/11, spent fuel pool number 4, boiling point, it's empty. And so when you look at this picture and you know the fuel pools are at the top of the building, it's not hard to comprehend that it's empty, is it? When you look at the damage, when you look at all the material hanging out of the very bottom of the building, right? Because the top of the building, the explosion will destroy everything below it. When we're 190 foot. This is a 150 foot wide building you're looking at. It's hard to appreciate the context of what you're actually looking at. That's a crazy picture right there of reactor 3 and reactor 4, right? That's reactor 3, this is reactor 4. That's an insane picture. That's an insane picture right there of reactor 4. There wasn't an academic in the nuclear industry on the entire planet didn't know that the building had lost its entire 3 decades plus of inventories. The helicopters couldn't go there, so what does that tell you? Right? They can't go there. Over 600 helicopter pilots died at Chernobyl right away, within a couple of weeks. They all died. The common spent fuel pool was across the street from reactor 3 and 4. It's on the same street. It had 6,375 spent fuel assemblies. Each assembly is around 1,800 pounds. There's 100 fuel rods. The rods are 12 feet and weighs 18 pounds. So 1,800 pounds. And because these were old buildings, they were all stuffed beyond capacity. So there could have been 12,000 spent fuel assemblies there. Because the common spent fuel is taken, decade or two old fuel from the other reactors and then is put into the common spent fuel pool to make room for the top of the buildings, right? And that design shouldn't exist. There's 70 reactors in the United States with the exact same design. So if any of them have an event, you can't get the reactor cores from the top of the buildings. You're going to lose that also. So you're not going to have one meltdown. You're going to have 8 or 9 reactor cores melting down or more. And that's what happened at Fukushima. So you're talking around almost 4,000 reactor cores of Chernobyl's capacity. Now Chernobyl, there was 9,000 farms in Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom closed because of radioactive fallout from Chernobyl. And Chernobyl, in comparison of Fukushima, is like a paper towel. aerosol plutonium from Fukushima detected in Europe. No, it was detected everywhere worldwide. And I showed you the plutonium models based on a fraction of the lost inventories, right? Let me see here. Sickened animals, unlike anything doctors had ever seen on the West Coast, they're eating themselves from the inside. Cancers, liver, pancreas, intestines shut down, infested with parasites, immune to antibiotics, an unprecedented catastrophe to cause the loss of over 200,000 sea lions. So, 2023, this story is really important. Explosion of sea lion deaths in Peru amid the deadly bird flu outbreak. So what the deadly bird flu allegedly would do is that within a couple of days, you would see these animals were drooling, their eyes were messed up, and they had no coordination. So imagine a 1,500, 2,000 pound sea lion, right? Looks like it's drunk. So this story was suggesting that's what was happening there was 3,487 sea lions have been found dead, and it says due to the virus. But then the pictures, now these are her pictures. So 3,500 sea lions died of the bird flu, but the bird flu doesn't cause sea lions to be emaciated. They die within a few days. These sea lions that they're showing you, that they're conflating, they're putting it in the same context, which is clearly not what's going on. This is an emaciated animal. It's starving to death, and it's tiny. Now, I have a lot of interactions with sea lions as a commercial diver. I've had nightmares. I've dumped my weight belt hundreds of times because I couldn't deal with my fear. Because they're so fast and I'm so slow. I never did conquer my fear. And it would always drive my stress level through the roof. And so I always had to go back down later to retrieve my weight belt. So I always had an extra 2 weight belts on the boat with me. I would be out there for 100 days at a time. So then the next picture they're going to show you. So this takes many, many, many months for an animal to emaciate down to 60, 70 pounds. They should, even a small sea lion should weigh 600, 700 pounds. So when you see them at less than 10% of the smallest version of a sea lion, and now this one here, I've never seen anything like that. And I've had thousands of interactions with sea lions. I've never seen anything like that. I've never seen anything like this. And so for them to conflate it with the bird flu is unbelievable. It's an unbelievable misrepresentation. Bird flu doesn't cause this. This is starvation. And then they suggest that the bird flu is causing the same thing for hundreds of species of birds, like ducks and seagulls and geese and hawks and owls in the United States, where they identified it among the bird flu among the bears and foxes, bobcats, raccoons. Just let me get that big screen up so I can get that. I can't remember what that other one was. Oh, they got bears there twice. That doesn't surprise me. And dolphins. Well, that was in 2022 when they made that comparison. That's when there was a mass die-off in the British coastline of gannets. It started there with gannets, and also at the exact same day, it came out all the gannets were dying on the east coast of Canada. And so across Canada, United States, anytime they found a fox or a raccoon or any kind of bird in the cities far, far from the ocean, they sent it to the same government laboratory where it was found positive for avian influenza. And they started up this campaign. Now, I was doing research. We had over 1 million common murres die here on our coastlines. And they dive 600 feet all day. So if they don't find food, you can expect nothing but bad news forever after until they're all gone, right? And they were showing up in the communities. Communities were picking them up and taking pictures of them, publishing it on all over social medias. And it was clear the animals were severe emaciation. They had no body mass, no fat, no muscles, and they died of starvation. Now, at the same time was what's known as a dovekite. It's a microscopic eater, and they were showing up in mass too. So we had two different spectrums of the food chain showing up severely emaciated at the same time. But they were trying to conflate it with the bird flu. Now, they stopped doing this narrative. They came out with that story right across Canada, United States for several months, and then they stopped doing this. They stopped reporting. But, like, as you can see here, this got picked back up. Like the plot of a summer horror flick all along the Canada's Pacific coast, mussels are dying. Now, that's the one thing we know is it was very unusual to find mussels on the research expeditions when I was out there for 4 to 5, 6 months a year. I documented everything with the GPS coordinations. Bodies are swollen by cancerous tumors, unprecedented mutations, allowing cancer to spread from one species to another like a virus, which is not a pathogen virus that will jump from species or humans to humans or something like that. And then they never come back here with a story like that again after. But they were trying. This was 2016 when I was out in July. I was out there doing research expeditions, and I was doing a lot of interviews at that time when I came ashore, because you would come ashore every couple of weeks for fuel and groceries and ice and repairs and that, right? And to do interviews and try to raise enough money to keep going. Historical crisis, like everything I do is dependent upon donations. And so the industry is well aware of that. And so they've managed to isolate me to the point where I don't even exist anymore. What they didn't count on was that I'm not a quitter like them. 15 viewers, really. 20 likes, really? That's it? That's what I get after all these years, 5 days a week, of providing nothing but the best documentation ever seen. 16 votes in my poll, that's all I get. Should Greenpeace force feed whales with the millions of people's donations they get a year before the whales are gone? Because if not, they're going to be out of a job in a couple of years. And in a couple of years, their new campaign is not going to be protect the whales, it's going to be protect the Greenpeace scam. Officials, historical crisis along the U.S. West Coast, we're facing a fishery disaster, very never seen before things. Extinction threat for salmon, sardines, squid, sea urchins, kelp, sea stars. And all of that has come true. Marine mammal strandings. Scientists, the West Coast bird die-off is the biggest ever recorded. The stomachs are completely empty. Like, the common murres, they dive 600 feet all day. And they feed on anchovies, squid, sardines, krill, the same species that most of the whales will eat. And so if all those birds are showing up emaciated and all the whales that eat those species are showing up emaciated, what are we left with? What's the conclusion that we can draw from that? Like, we're going to have to face that music in a couple of years when... Yeah, the real nuclear war is radioactive fallout from 1,000 fuel pools worldwide splitting atoms into the environment. Stomachs are completely empty. It's unheard of. Never seen anything like it. Unprecedented in size, scope, and durations. And a host of other freakish phenomenons. North America will not be safe TV now from Fukushima radiation if the plant keeps leaking. Every time I hear the word leaking, I literally, like, when you look at these buildings and you say the word leaking, you should lose your degrees that you got in university. Animals suddenly died on the west coast right after 2011. And whales started showing up within a year emaciated. The food chain was broken right away. And then they were getting radiation poisoning. They couldn't uptake the nutrition too because they were getting the brutal initial radioactive fallout. The whole world noticed this strange phenomenon. Fatally high levels of radioactive material have entered the ocean. Fatally high levels of radioactive material have covered the entire planet. Fatally high levels of radioactive material have set us on a course for no return. And we're just a few years away now. In a few years, there'll be no more whales. We won't have to put up with Greenpeace talking about saved whales anymore. They save nothing, but they rake in millions of people's donations. Imagine how evil you got to be to participate in that stuff. Do you know what? Like, all the media participated in the lie that the reactors were intact to protect the nuclear industry, not you. They don't care about you. This was a Bryde's whale a few months ago. This is one about a week and a half ago. Bryde's whale. Like, it's coming for us. It's coming for every species and you. You are not going to escape that. So you might as well join the fight and beat the shit out of this industry way so you don't live to regret it. It wasn't a heat wave per se that killed starved whales. They died of starvation. It's starvation. It's like this whale should weigh, this was a few months ago in India, and the only excuse I can come up with such a low quality photograph in a time when everybody has a camera with 20 to 50 million pixels is that when these stories reach North America, or my computer maybe, it's denigrated to the point where it's basically useless. My original impression of this picture was, like, how am I going to use this picture to tell the story? Because, like, this is detail, for instance. I would love to see that quality of this whale. This is supposed to be a 90,000 pound Bryde's whale. I guess I didn't really, but I kind of digressed. I went over to because the last couple of shows, all I'm doing is dead whale after dead whale after dead whale after dead whale without the context. And I can't assume everybody knows why I'm conflating radioactive fallout with the extinction event, with the emaciation of all the species. I don't know. I feel like apologizing to everybody because I'm doing these videos, but if I don't do this, I won't be able to move on, right? If I don't cover this stuff, I'm not going to be able to. I'm just not going to feel good. I feel this whale should weigh close to 380,000 pounds. It probably weighs, because it's, big whale, skin and bones, it maybe weighs. This one is absurd. let's say 12,000 pounds. Let's say 20,000. Let's say 30,000 pounds. Well, where's the other 300,000 plus pounds to? It's just wow. And that's today's picture right here. I jammed this together for a thumbnail. That's yesterday's thumbnail here. I can't tell the difference. There's another thumbnails the day before of dead whales. There's a thumbnail of the day before of dead whales, different whales. All like, at what point do we say maybe I got a point? You know, I think Dana might have a few points. I think the one thing the industry didn't count on too is that you folks are not going to be put off either. Because like when you look at, if you don't know the subject very much, look at the statistics of the YouTube video or the live stream, you're saying, well, there's no one there, I'm not going to go watch that. A lot of people have themselves, they're trained by the industry to ignore that, right? Oh, there's no one there, it's not worthy of watching. But you will not find another video ever, unfortunately, horrifyingly, that will provide you with this much documentation in just an hour or two, right? Wow, we made it up. I didn't dream I was going to make it past an hour. It's something about telling this story that even when I'm busted up and broken and tired and not feeling good, I'll feel guilty if I don't come out and try to tell the story. And, you know, everything I'm seeing the last number of days, in particular, is just brutal on my side. Just gathering all this up is just, it's damaging. And then to sit here at nighttime and try to tell the story gives me some relief, but it's still hard on me. This is brutalness, and I feel so fortunate that I can come here and tell the story. I'm so grateful that I can tell this story. I can't possibly articulate, because I know it's end time now. I'm not going to live in a delusion, right? And the idea of the poll, which only got 16 votes, I worked so hard on these shows. Should Greenpeace force feed whales with the millions of people's donations they get every year before the whales are gone? I done that just to mock Greenpeace. That's the idea of that poll, was so I can, to myself, I don't know before anybody else, so I can mock Greenpeace. Any Greenpeace members, I hopefully that some of them will find this video, some of them will watch the video, some of them will do a second thought. And that's a win for the whales. Greenpeace is not the whales' friends. Never were. And in a couple of years, they're not going to be able to use the whales as some kind of fake rally point ever again. Just laughing because James posted another song, anti-nuclear song. I can almost imagine what it's going to be like. I'm so looking forward to that. That actually cheered me up to see that. Well, let's call it a night. We're going to play that James's latest song. And I'll see everybody hopefully tomorrow night. I don't know if we got any more whale shows to get done, but we'll find something. Hopefully I don't find a whole bunch more of emaciated whales anyway. We'll know tomorrow, I guess. I'll be looking, unfortunately. One more boo at the poll. Should Greenpeace force feed the whales with the hundreds of millions of dollars they get from millions of people's donations every single year before the whales are gone? Because in a couple of years, I would imagine people are going to stop donating to them. Have a great night. My heart goes out to all the whales and everybody that worried about them. Bless your hearts for caring and showing up here tonight. It's going to be good. Now, normally under his video, he's got links to what inspired him or what frustrated him into making the video. Not all the time, but certainly most of the time. And the song we started off with tonight, Nuclear Overton Window, is that song right there. And scroll down 3 and you'll see it. And you got 400 views on that one. Way to go, James. He's censored heavily, eh? That video there, that song is amazing. And this one is incredible, the enrichment of uranium. Just because he wrote the software to make the radiation symbol do all this fancy stuff. He's got it free for everybody to use. He's definitely taken on the most difficult subjects. So we're quite proud of that. See you on the next one. Have a great night. Take care.
Cheer showdown!
Theme is Fukushima microbes, ordinary bacteria living in contaminated water.
Pro-nuclear says it's safe. Anti-nuclear calls it propaganda. Here's a quick clip to let you decide.
In Unit 2's Taurus room, water measured about 1 billion becquerels of cesium-137 per liter. Yet the microbes living in it aren't super extremophiles. Tests show they have only ordinary radiation resistance. Many of the identified genera are notorious for driving corrosion.
All right, so Fukushima microbes is our theme.
Pro-nuclear team is up first. Give it up for Pro-nuclear Queens!
Team Adam! And here come the Pro-nuclear All-Stars hitting the floor with attitude. Pro-nuclear Queens! Power! Wins!
Surprisingly unscathed by radiation.
Still alive.
Fukushima microbes.
Still alive.
Radiation vibe.
Still alive. Radiation vibe. Please tell me to get to the line. Clean landing. Stunning opening.
Biofilm blanket on the steel. If they can live, so can we. So can we. So can we.
Team Adam.
So can we. So can we.
So can we? Pro-nuclear, no fear. Pro-nuclear, we're here. Microbes agree, we cheer.
Team Adam
Up here.
Team Adam. Fukushima microbes. Fukushima microbes. Fukushima microbes. Fukushima microbes.
Fukushima microbes. Fukushima microbes. Fukushima microbes.
Oh, wow! That was amazing! And now?
Next up are the anti-nuclear queens, everyone. Here we go.
Look at the energy. Clean lines, sharp motions, and those bright smiles. This is their moment.
Basement water. Still stays hot. Radiation still there. You call it a win. We call it corium. Pro-nuclear queen. Fukushima microbes are weird, no cheers for waste, no more reactors. Clean up the place!